Today I'm going to be talking about Alright, so we have a new Knives Out sequel, and the plot for it is pretty much this. A famed Southern detective, Benoit Blanc, travels to Greece for his latest case. I'm just going to say this before I start my review. I have never seen Knives Out before.
What?
Alright, let's get into the good parts of this movie, and the first thing I'm going to say is that you do not have to watch the first Knives Out movie to watch this one. It has no connections to the first one from what I believe, and the only thing that you really need to know is that Daniel Craig was in the first one, and that's about it. And he's in this one as well. And like I said, I did not watch the first Knives Out movie, and I had no problem catching up with everything. The only thing that's from the first one is, the detective from the first one, but everything else in this movie is brand new to not only the people who haven't seen the first Knives Out movie, but the people who did see the Knives Out movie as well. Another good thing that I liked about this movie is the camera work. Clearly, they got a massive budget for this movie, and it pays off in the cinematography. And honestly, this is probably one of the best shot movies of the year. Another good thing that I liked about this movie are the performances. If you've looked at the cast for this movie, all of them are some of the best in the industry right now. And obviously that pays off with the movie, whether that's Daniel Craig, whether that's Dave Bautista, Edward Norton. There's a whole bunch of people in this movie. Even Madeline Klein from Outer Banks is in this thing. Janelle Monáe is in this movie, and although she's not really given much to do in the first half of this movie, from the second half to the end of this movie, she is easily a standout in this movie. And I know that Knives Out has been getting some Oscar consideration, and I don't know whether or not it's possible, but I would not be surprised if she did get nominated for one. Another good thing that I liked about this movie is the set design. Obviously, a good portion of the budget had to have gone to this huge mansion that's in the movie because it is absolutely stunning to look at. Another great thing about this movie is the score for this thing. I don't know who exactly composed it, but clearly this was just a great score. I'm not necessarily going to be listening to this score, but I will admit that this was a standout on its own, and it really helped elevate this movie. Another good thing that I liked about this movie is the comedy, and once again, when the comedy is honestly flowing and in a natural state, I think that the movie is really great, and I actually had some pretty good laughs with it, but sometimes you can feel that the comedy went just a bit overboard. Another good thing that I liked about this movie is the pacing, and I would say specifically for the first half of this movie, I thought that everything was well done, everything was well paced. But once we get to the second act of this movie, that's when I start getting just a bit bored and just wishing that we can kind of get to the end point. Alright, let's get into some of my criticisms for this movie. And the first one is that I cared more about certain characters than others. I think the big problem that I had with this movie is that when something bad would happen to a character, I wouldn't care too much just because the movie didn't really do a good job of developing the characters that well. We know the character and we know what they're about, but we don't know too much about the characters to really care, so that when something bad happens to them, it's really hard for me at least to care for them. Another criticism that I have for this movie is the fact that it does this thing where in the first act, something really major happens, and then we kind of get like a background thing that happens where we get to see everything that happens before, everyone went on the yacht. And although it kind of worked, it kind of threw off the pacing for the movie, and by the time we get back to, present day, it was kind of hard for me to care at that point. Another problem that I had with this movie is the pacing and the overall time of the movie. Obviously, this movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes, and although the first half of this movie is pretty much a perfect movie, the second half of this movie, I just feel like certain scenes went a bit longer than they needed to be, and I think for the overall movie, I think they definitely could have cut 10 to 15 minutes. Overall, guys, although Knives Out 2 is a fun watch, I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to, and I'm going to go ahead and give Knives Out 2 a 7.5 out of 10. Have you seen this movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments. And those are my thoughts on that.